Most people imagine medieval peasants surviving on crude food, rough bread, and constant hunger. We picture hard crusts, dark loaves, and bodies barely enduring. It feels natural to assume that modern bread, with all its refinement and technology, must be an improvement. But that assumption hides a quiet truth. Those peasants worked from sunrise to sunset. They lifted, walked, carried, and endured in ways most modern bodies rarely experience. They ate fewer meals than we do. They had no supplements, no nutrition guides, no laboratories, yet their bread sustained them. Not briefly, not artificially, deeply and reliably. Their strength did not come from abundance. It came from understanding. They knew that bread was not just something to fill the stomach. It was something that had to cooperate with the body. It had to release energy slowly, digest gently, and nourish completely. And they learned, through experience, that this only happened when time and fermentation were allowed to do their work. Modern bread broke that relationship. It became faster, softer, lighter, and more convenient. It began to look finished while remaining incomplete inside. It promised comfort, but quietly demanded more from the body in return. The medieval loaf did the opposite. It asked for patience before baking so the body would not have to struggle afterward. What they knew was never marketed. It was never standardized. It was tested only by life itself, and the body approved it, again and again. This is not a nostalgic story about old food. It is a reminder that your body still responds to the same rules it always has. And the secret medieval peasants understood about sourdough is the reason why time was the hidden ingredient. Medieval sourdough was never rushed, because rushing food was understood to weaken it. When flour and water were mixed, nothing else was demanded from the dough except patience. It was left to sit in silence for long hours, sometimes for days, while unseen work slowly unfolded. This waiting was not accidental, and it was not inefficiency. It was the most important stage of the entire process. During this time, the grain began to change at a deep level. The hard structure of flour softened. The dense starches loosened. The dough slowly opened itself. What looked like stillness on the surface was transformation underneath. The bread was being prepared before it ever felt heat. As the hours passed, natural fermentation reshaped the dough. Proteins relaxed, complex sugars broke down, and the grain became something the human body could recognize and use. By the time the loaf entered the oven, much of the work was already complete. Fire only finished what time had started. Modern bread removed this stage entirely. Speed replaced patience. Commercial yeast was introduced to force a rapid rise, not to transform the grain, but to inflate it. The dough swells quickly, but it does not mature. The structure looks finished, yet the inner work never happens. This is why modern bread often feels heavy despite being soft. It fills the stomach without truly feeding it. The body is forced to complete the work that time was supposed to do. Medieval peasants did not need scientific language to understand this. They learned through daily labor, through how their bodies responded after eating, through whether the bread sustained them or drained them. Over generations, they recognized a simple truth. Food that is rushed remains incomplete. To them, time was not an inconvenience. It was the ingredient that turned grain into nourishment. Fermentation did the work before the body had to. Fermentation was not a technique to medieval peasants. It was a quiet agreement with the body. They understood, without naming it, that food should arrive already softened, already changed, already made gentle. Sourdough was trusted because it began the work of digestion before the bread was ever eaten. As the dough rested, living cultures slowly broke down what the human stomach struggles with most. Complex starches were reduced. Proteins that normally demand effort were loosened. The grain was no longer raw in nature, even though it had not yet been baked. What entered the oven was food that had already been prepared for the body. This mattered deeply in a world of physical labor. Peasants could not afford food that drained energy through digestion. Their bread needed to give strength, not steal it. Fermented sourdough delivered energy without heaviness. The stomach did not fight the meal. The body absorbed it smoothly and moved on. Modern bread reverses this relationship. Rapid yeast inflates the dough, but leaves the grain intact at a structural level. The loaf looks light, yet the digestion is heavy. The stomach is forced to break down what fermentation should have handled. Energy is spent processing food instead of fueling the body. This is why many people feel tired or uncomfortable after eating modern bread, even in small amounts. The body is doing unfinished work. Medieval peasants did not analyze this with data. They listened. They noticed which bread allowed them to work longer, walk farther, and think more clearly. Fermented bread stayed. Everything else disappeared. Their wisdom was simple and exact. Food should arrive half-digested by time, not demanded entirely from the body. Grain was made available, not just edible. Medieval peasants understood something modern bread quietly ignores. Eating grain is not the same as absorbing it. Grain can fill the stomach while leaving the body undernourished. The difference lies in whether the grain is merely edible or truly available. Whole grains naturally protect themselves. They contain compounds that bind minerals tightly, making them difficult for the human body to access. Without proper preparation, iron, zinc, magnesium, and other essential elements pass through unused. The stomach may feel full, but the body remains deprived. Sourdough fermentation changed this. As the dough rested, natural acids formed slowly. These acids reduced the grain's natural defenses and released the minerals locked inside. What had been trapped became accessible. What had been hidden became usable. Medieval bread did not need enrichment because nothing had been removed. The nourishment was already there, waiting to be unlocked. Over time, bodies stayed strong not because peasants ate more, but because their food delivered what it promised. Modern bread often advertises nutrients, but many remain bound or artificially added back after processing. Labels suggest abundance, yet absorption remains low. The grain looks improved, but its structure has not been restored. Medieval peasants learned this lesson through endurance. Bread that only filled the belly failed quickly. Bread that strengthened the body survived generations. Their sourdough did not just feed hunger. It fed blood, bone, and muscle quietly, every day. Bread was alive, not manufactured. To medieval peasants, bread was not an object pulled from an oven. It was a living process that required care, attention, and continuity. At the center of this process was the sourdough starter, a living culture that breathed, grew, weakened, and strengthened just like the people who depended on it. These starters were fed daily. They were protected from cold, revived after neglect, and shared between families. A starter carried memory. It held the history of the grain, the water, the air, and the hands that touched it. No two villages had the same bread, because no two environments were the same. This living bread adapted naturally. In colder months, it moved slowly. In warmth, it became active. It responded to weather, seasons, and changes in grain. Instead of fighting these shifts, medieval bakers worked with them. Bread was not expected to be perfect. It was expected to be alive. Modern bread is designed in the opposite way. It removes life to gain control. Uniform yeast replaces natural cultures. Conditions are fixed. Outcomes are engineered. The goal is sameness, not nourishment. In doing so, bread becomes predictable but disconnected. It no longer responds to environment or body. It only responds to machines. Medieval peasants did not speak of microbes or ecosystems, yet they understood relationship. Their bread lived alongside them. It changed as they changed. What was baked was not just food. It was a continuation of life, passed from one day to the next. Fullness was deep, not brief. Medieval peasants did not measure bread by how soft it felt in the hand or how quickly it disappeared from the plate. They judged it by how long it carried them. A good loaf was one that stayed with the body, not one that demanded to be replaced soon after eating. Sourdough created a deep, steady fullness. Because the grain had been slowly fermented, it digested gradually. Energy was released over time, not all at once. Hunger did not return suddenly. The body felt settled, grounded, and capable. This mattered in lives built around physical work. Fields did not pause for snacks. Forests did not allow frequent meals. Bread had to sustain long hours of effort without distraction. Sourdough did exactly that. It did not spike the body into brief energy followed by weakness. It supported endurance. Modern bread behaves differently. Rapidly processed grain breaks down quickly in the body. Blood sugar rises fast and falls just as quickly. The stomach may feel full, but the body soon asks for more. Hunger returns not because nourishment was lacking in quantity, but because it was lacking in structure. This creates a cycle of eating without satisfaction. More food is consumed, yet energy feels unstable. Medieval peasants learned to trust bread that fed slowly. They knew that real fullness is quiet. It does not shout and disappear. It settles and remains. Their bread did not rush the body. It walked with it through the day. Simplicity protected the body. Medieval peasants lived close to the limits of survival, and that proximity shaped how they chose food. Anything unnecessary, anything that weakened the body over time, could not be afforded. This is why their bread remained simple, not because they lacked knowledge, but because simplicity proved itself again and again as protection. Their bread began with flour, water, salt, and thyme. Nothing more was required. Every ingredient had a clear purpose, and every purpose served the body. Flour provided substance. Water brought life. Salt preserved balance. Thyme completed what human hands could not. Nothing was added to improve appearance. Nothing was included to extend shelf life beyond what nature allowed. Nothing existed to manipulate texture for convenience or speed. The body understood this bread immediately. It recognized each component. Digestion moved forward without confusion. Energy followed without resistance. Modern bread represents a different philosophy. It is built not around the human body, but around production systems. Additives appear not to nourish, but to stabilize, soften, preserve, whiten, stretch, or accelerate. Each addition solves a mechanical problem, while quietly creating a biological one. Emulsifiers alter texture but disturb gut balance. Preservatives slow mold but burden the liver. Bleaching agents improve color while stripping character. Conditioners force softness while weakening structure. None of these were designed for digestion. They were designed for predictability. Medieval peasants did not have the luxury of eating food that worked against them. Their days demanded strength, clarity, and resilience. If bread caused heaviness, bloating, weakness, or fog, it did not survive long in practice. Recipes that harmed the body disappeared naturally, without debate. This is how simplicity survived, not as an ideal, but as a filter. Each generation refined bread not by adding complexity, but by removing what proved unnecessary. Over time, only what supported life remained. Simplicity also preserved trust. When bread contained only a few elements, bakers understood every stage of its creation. There were no hidden processes, no invisible chemicals, no unknown reactions. What went into the body was fully known. Modern bread often asks for trust without transparency. Ingredients stretch across labels, many unrecognizable without study. The eater becomes dependent on systems they cannot see or control. Medieval bread returned authority to the individual. If the loaf failed, the baker knew why. If the body reacted poorly, the cause could be traced. Food remained personal. Simplicity also protected rhythm. Simple dough responded naturally to temperature, humidity, and time. It did not need correction through chemicals. It adjusted on its own, the way living systems do. Modern bread resists environment. Climate-controlled factories and stabilizers enforce sameness, even when conditions differ. This creates food disconnected from place and season. The medieval loaf changed with the year. Winter bread differed from summer bread. Grain varied, water varied, fermentation varied, and bodies adapted alongside these changes. Simplicity allowed flexibility without damage. It also prevented excess. When bread was simple, overeating was rare. Fullness arrived clearly and remained. There was no artificial stimulation, encouraging constant consumption. Modern bread often encourages more eating without satisfaction. Softness invites speed, sweetness invites repetition, additives invite craving. The medieval loaf did not seduce. It sustained. Simplicity protected not only digestion, but longevity. Over decades of eating the same bread, bodies remained functional, energy stayed steady, strength endured. Modern diets often change constantly, chasing novelty, stimulation, and convenience. The body never fully adapts because the food never settles. Medieval peasants trusted repetition. They ate the same bread day after day because it worked. Stability was not boredom, it was safety. Their simplicity also preserved skill. Baking required attention, not shortcuts. Hands learned texture, eyes learned timing. Experience replaced dependency on instructions. Modern bread removes skill from the process. Machines correct mistakes automatically. Human understanding fades. When food becomes simple, people become skilled. When food becomes complex, people become dependent. This is the deeper protection simplicity offered. It protected the body from overload. It protected the mind from confusion. It protected communities from reliance on distant systems. Medieval peasants did not romanticize simplicity. They respected it because it kept them alive. Their bread did not promise convenience. It promised endurance. And that promise was kept, generation after generation. Bread followed rhythm, not convenience. Medieval bread was shaped by rhythm, not by demand. It followed the natural pace of days, seasons, weather, and human strength. Baking was not scheduled for convenience or speed. It was aligned with when the dough was ready, when the fire was right, and when the people could give attention. Fermentation changed with temperature. In cold months it slowed, stretching over long hours. In warmth it moved faster, asking for earlier care. Bakers did not force consistency. They listened and adjusted. Bread was never expected to behave the same way every day. This rhythm trained awareness. Hands learned when dough had rested enough. Eyes learned subtle changes in texture and rise. Time was felt, not measured. Modern bread reverses this relationship. Dough is forced to meet schedules, not readiness. Temperature, yeast strength, and additives override natural timing. The goal is predictability at all costs. In medieval life, food moved at the speed of life. Baking happened around work, light, and energy. Some days bread was better than others, and that was accepted. Nourishment mattered more than uniformity. This rhythm extended beyond baking. Grain was harvested seasonally. Flour changed throughout the year. Water changed with rainfall. Bread reflected all of it. Eating became part of the environment, not separate from it. Modern bread detaches from season entirely. The same loaf appears every day of the year, identical in color, texture, and taste, regardless of climate or grain quality. This sameness comforts systems, not bodies. Medieval peasants trusted variation because it strengthened adaptability. Bodies that eat with seasons stay resilient. Digestion learns flexibility. Energy stays balanced. Convenience weakens this relationship. When food ignores rhythm, the body must absorb the consequences. Old bread followed time. Modern bread commands it. One aligned with life. The other interrupts it. The body was the authority. Medieval peasants did not outsource judgment about food. There were no experts to convince them otherwise, no institutions to override lived experience, no marketing to confuse appetite with need. The body was the authority, and it spoke clearly every day. They trusted sensation over theory. Strength after eating mattered more than promises. Clarity during work mattered more than taste. Endurance through long hours mattered more than softness or sweetness. Bread that failed these tests did not survive long in use. If a loaf caused heaviness, it was remembered. If it caused weakness, it was adjusted. If it caused discomfort, it was abandoned. No argument could save it. Knowledge was not debated. It was filtered through survival. Food either carried the body forward or it held it back. There was no patience for anything that quietly drained strength. This constant feedback shaped bread over generations. Each batch taught something. Each season refined understanding. Over time, the body trained the baker, as much as the baker shaped the bread. Modern culture reversed this hierarchy. Labels speak louder than sensation. Claims override experience. People are taught to doubt their bodies and trust systems instead. If discomfort appears, it is often normalized. If fatigue follows eating, it is blamed on stress. If hunger returns quickly, it is ignored. The body speaks, but it is no longer believed. Medieval peasants lived too close to consequence to ignore these signals. Weakness meant slower work. Poor digestion meant lost energy. Lost energy meant vulnerability. Their lives depended on listening accurately. They also understood that the body speaks over time, not just in moments. A loaf that felt fine once but drained strength over weeks was noticed. Patterns mattered. Consistency mattered. Bread was eaten daily. Its effects were impossible to hide. Modern diets change constantly. New products replace old ones before the body can fully respond. Discomfort is scattered, diluted, and harder to trace. The signal gets lost in noise. Medieval simplicity sharpened perception. Eating the same bread day after day made cause and effect unmistakable. When sourdough endured, it was not because of tradition alone. It was because bodies confirmed it repeatedly. It worked yesterday. It worked today. It would work tomorrow. No further justification was needed. This authority of the body also preserved humility. Bakers did not assume mastery. They adjusted based on response. They watched how people felt, worked, and endured. Food remained accountable to the eater. Modern bread often escapes accountability. If it fails, blame shifts elsewhere. The eater is told to adapt, supplement, or tolerate. Medieval peasants did the opposite. They adapted the bread. This created a quiet partnership between food and body. Bread respected the limits of digestion. The body rewarded it with strength. There was no need for constant eating. Appetite stabilized. Cravings were rare. Hunger arrived honestly and left fully. Modern bread often creates appetite without nourishment. The body asks again not because it needs more food, but because it did not receive what it needed the first time. Medieval peasants recognized this instinctively. They trusted fullness when it arrived and waited patiently until it returned. Their authority was internal. They also understood recovery. After illness, grief, or exhaustion, bread was adjusted. Fermentation lengthened, texture softened, food supported healing, not just survival. The body guided these changes. Modern systems rarely adapt food to the eater. The eater is expected to adjust to food. This reversal erodes trust. People stop listening inward and begin searching outward for answers that were once obvious. Medieval peasants did not chase optimization. They sought balance. Bread that allowed steady work, clear thought, and restful sleep was enough. Their bodies confirmed this balance daily. Over time, this authority protected communities. Weak food weakened people. Weak people weakened villages. Only what sustained strength endured. The body acted as a silent judge, relentless and honest. No trend could override it. No belief could excuse it. No habit could survive without its approval. Sourdough passed this judgment repeatedly. Modern bread often does not. The difference is not knowledge. It is who we allow to decide. Medieval peasants trusted the body first. Everything else followed.